Hello, my name's George Fenton. I am one of the team working on the ULS project, and I'm pleased to present to you an outline of the warehouse and storage chapter that is being reviewed as part of the pilot project that has been launched. Warehouse management covers two main activities: the practice and processes to select and maintain a place to store goods, and secondly, the organization and control of stock to support operations. An organization may use several warehouses or storage facilities that have different functions or are in different locations. For example, as a holding point where goods serve as a buffer between the source and the recipient to control fluctuations in supply and demand. It could be a place for consolidation of supplies. It could be a place where kits of different products are created according to the intervention needs, or for what is called a break bulk place where large loads are divided into smaller, more manageable sizes, or for contingency stocks that are held perhaps sometimes on a long-term basis to enable a rapid response to a future emergency intervention. In some situations, warehousing may not be required, and alternatives such as direct deliveries could be implemented to a distribution site. But whatever the case, coordination, preparedness, and the potential pooling of resources are important considerations, as is good communications about what is being stored in the warehouses, and feedback on stock levels for those that need to be able to use the stock. So the chapter on storage and warehousing covers storage planning, warehouse setup, design and layout of warehouses or storage facilities, the inventory management and documentation requirements, stock management, and the environmental impact of warehousing operations. Standard number 1 is about storage planning, and the standard states that warehouse management supports appropriately the organization and purpose of the intervention. Key actions here are around defining the purpose of the storage area according to the need and the context. For example, is it a temporary or long-term facility? What type of goods are being stored? Are they food goods or non-food items or medical items? And ensure that this is part of a wider supply chain strategy. It's good to analyze the benefit of holding stock based on cost and risks, what products can be obtained in the local market and how reliable is the availability of those, as well as the potential to complement operations of other agencies, the private sector, local organizations, and partners. Key indicators are that it's important for there to be a clear warehouse set of specifications that meet operational requirements, analysis of risks, costs and benefits of holding stock, the percentage of stakeholder requests that have been satisfied through the storage services, or the percentage of stock that actually fulfills overall plans. In general, it's good to ensure that operational requirements consider the location of your organization's offices, partners, affected communities, and distribution points. In some cases, a customs bonded warehouse could be useful depending on the duration and schedule of goods arrival internationally. The type, quantity, and volume of goods is critical to operations, i.e. issues related to dangerous goods or products like food and medical items that need special management. It's good to consider the source of the goods. Are they internationally provided, locally procured, or are there donations considered? And the reliability in these cases of the lead times for delivery of goods. The flow of goods is important to consider in terms of short-term for goods in transit, or long-term perhaps for contingency stocks. Costs of storage can include the packing of material and supplies, the warehouse utilities such as electricity and water supply, daily workers' costs, maintenance, repairs, cleaning, security, and rent. If you're considering purchasing a warehouse, the level of investment should be based on the time frame and the scope of activities. And it's good to consider the opportunity to employ people from locally from the affected communities, as well as benefits to the local economy of using the existing facility over establishing a new structure. In many cases, it may be easier and more cost-effective to outsource warehouse management and operations to a third party. Standard number 2 is about storage setup, and the storage standard here states that the facility accomplishes its expected functions and contributes to the best use of resources. The key actions here are to assess the available storage options, but depending on products to be stored, the location and size of the facility needed, and its proximity to supply and distribution points. Ensure that the warehouse is accessible for deliveries and availability of local laborers and other resources for goods handling and management. It's good to ensure that the warehouse is not liable to flooding, of course, impacted by poor road access and other factors, and it is safe, secure, and complies with legal requirements. Key indicators here are around establishing criteria for warehouse selection and definition of required resources, so workforce, equipment, etc. It's good to monitor the percentage of time the warehouse operations may be disrupted, for example, due to unforeseen disturbances. It's good to monitor the percentage of goods moved through the warehouse. Other considerations are whether the facilities have the essential conditions for storing goods, such as enough space, good ventilation, good ceiling height, strong level floor, etc. Also, could a temporary facility be used for a short-term intervention instead of a warehouse, such as containers or mobile storage units? Could the facility be disrupted in any way due to regular local market activity? And also good to consider potential negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood, such as additional traffic, noise, or security threats that might be created. Outsourcing warehouse management, as stated earlier, can support the local economy. It's good to ensure that the warehouse has been licensed by the authorities for the type of commodities stored, particularly for dangerous goods, but also for fresh food or pharmaceuticals, etc. And it's good to align the storage size with a stock strategy, i.e. Continuous replenishment, pre-positioning of stocks, a push and pull management approach. Standard number 3 is about the design and layout of the storage facility, and it states that the standard states that it be designed to maximize space utilization with a minimum necessary handling effort to provide safe, accessible, responsive, and reliable management of goods. Key actions here are to make a clear layout plan for the warehouse and materials handling requirements, such as shelving or racking, pallets, and forklift trucks, focusing on maximizing space and minimizing handling effort. It's good to ensure that the layout considers staff safety, taking into consideration easy ways to use important handling equipment. Key indicators here to be established are that there is a storage layout plan providing essential information on the use of space, percentage storage space, which is currently used should be monitored, the percentage of goods physically separated depending on the type and nature of them should also be monitored, such as food separated from non-food items, percentage of staff trained in health and safety procedures, and proper use of equipment is also important. Generally, when planning the warehouse layout, it's good to consider separate warehouse spaces, workspaces for administration, kitting, receipt and dispatch, picking and packing of goods. It's good to maximize available space by exploring the use of shelving or racks and avoid placing goods directly on the floor or against walls. Shelves or pallets should be placed at least 50 centimeters from walls to permit maintenance access, cleaning, and good air circulation. Staff access areas are important. With the width between stacks and shelving should be appropriate. A dedicated space for damaged goods and materials to be disposed of should be considered. And a plan for the different needs of all those working in the warehouse. There should be at least one toilet suitable for each gender and access to water to meet basic sanitary and hygiene standards. Storage space ratios should not be lower than 75% or higher than 90%, indicating either underutilization or overutilization of storage space to allow efficient operations and in a safe working manner. Ensure that access to different goods and their identification card, code number, tag is good, and if required, goods should be stored in separate zones or buildings, again, such as food, non-food items, dangerous goods, high-value items, or items requiring special cooling or refrigeration. When machinery such as forklift trucks are used, they should be operated appropriately, separately from laborers that are, say, building a stack of food bags in order to minimize any accidents. Standard number 4 is about inventory management and documentation, and the standard states that warehouse processes ensure traceability, transparency, and support program planning and forecasting through accurate documentation. The key actions here are to identify all goods based as a minimum on the type, volume, ownership, expected usage, and specifications. Ensure that all stock movements and warehouse activities are planned, tracked, and documented. It's good to maintain accurate stock level information and make it available to project and other staff for planning and logistics operations purposes. Periodically, it's good to confirm the accuracy of this information by making inventories of goods in stock and reconciling documentation against that stock. Ensure that the movement of goods is performed by designated staff with a segregation of duties to ensure compliance and accuracy of stock records while minimizing losses and human error. Provide training to warehouse staff to ensure that they operate efficiently and safely and with respect to your code of conduct or your partner's codes of conduct. And the key indicators here to consider are the percentage of goods documented in stock records, the percentage of stock movements, receipt and dispatch with available and accurate records, any discrepancies between physical and inventory and stock records, and the percentage of staff trained on warehouse management skills. In general, the main activities should be documented are planning, receiving, maintenance, repacking, dispatching, stock management and reverse logistics or product returns. You need to decide which stock rotation method is most appropriate to use. And the most common ones are called either first in, first out, or first expired, first out, or last in, first out. Further information can be found separately on those through our references. Stock should be actively managed to minimize obsolescence and wastage. Where stock is either obsolete or requiring disposal, it's good to take appropriate action considering the need for prior authorization, disposal methods, specific donor requirements, or documentation needed. Goods should only be requested or requisitioned or taken out of the warehouse with written authorization. A written record of dispatch, such as a waybill, should be generated and signed, and appropriate copies should be accompanying the goods to their end destination. All stock movements should be recorded digitally or physically, such as on bin cards or in an inventory management system, and include details of the transfer, i.e. who is delivering and receiving the item, what the specification was, the quantities, and the date. Records for all stock transactions should be accurate and up to date, and stock balances shared with relevant stakeholders, as mentioned earlier, to guide activity planning. Standard number 5 is about overall stock management. And the standard here states that the management processes and storage conditions in place allow the preservation of stored items, minimizing losses and the deterioration of goods. Key actions are to undertake a warehouse risk assessment to determine the most likely hazards. This should be done on an, perhaps an annual basis, considering things like the risk of fires, floods, disruption, looting, potential in insecure situations, and put in place the required physical and procedural mitigation measures, including contingency plans. It's good to monitor and control storage conditions, such as humidity, temperature, pests, vectors, on a regular basis to minimize the deterioration of goods, and to perform regular inspections and maintenance of the facility and its equipment. Also good to ensure regular ventilation and cleaning in order to guarantee that storage conditions are healthy and safe. Key indicators here are the availability of an updated analysis providing essential information about key risks affecting stocks, the percentage of mitigating measures outlined in the risk analysis that actually have been addressed, the value of damaged or expired or lost goods, or the frequency and intensity of temperature and humidity variances from the recommended thresholds. Other considerations include that goods, particularly food, need to be protected from sunlight, rain, humidity, and extreme temperatures. The use of exposed, uncovered storage areas should be avoided whenever possible, therefore. Inside the warehouse, humidity levels should remain under 70%, and the temperature inside the warehouse should be between 0 and 30 degrees Celsius. Basic physical and procedural measures to mitigate typical risks include good ventilation to reduce the humidity and temperature levels, treatment against pests, so if necessary, spray the warehouse, treat the surrounding areas, and use fumigation methods. Keeping the warehouse surroundings clear of rubbish to avoid attracting rodents, and if there are rodents, setting up traps. Check the base and top of each stack, as well as under pallets for insects, spider webs, or cocoons, and also ensure that things like fertilizer, pesticides, or cement are not kept in a warehouse where there is also food, medical items, or other sensitive products. In general, physical protection against theft could include a strong fence, walls, barbed wire, lighting, padlocks, window grills, etc. It's good to physically separate the office space where visitors can visit from the storage space. Ensure that fire safety equipment is available, such as fire extinguishers and sand buckets, and these are maintained and are kept inside and outside the storage area. It's good to consider employing security guards, of course. It's good to limit access to facilities to authorized people only. It's good not to permit smoking, cooking, or open flames of any kind in the warehouse facilities. And it's good to keep flammable materials in a dedicated storage area far away from stored materials. A security plan and safety rules should be kept in the warehouse and staff appropriately trained about this. To guarantee that the working environment is healthy and safe, it's good to consider the following rules, such as height of stack. The height of stacks should not exceed 3 meters, and there should not be anything stored above 1 meter per square meter. Most marked dangerous goods according to international regulations, and ensure that dangerous goods signage is, or any signage is visible to indicate potential hazards and location of safety equipment, such as fire extinguishers. It's always good to handle heavy goods with appropriate protective measures and the right equipment, and always store heavy goods on the floor on a pallet. It's good to ensure that equipment is used only by authorized personnel, and of course that first aid kits are available and regularly maintained. The last standard, standard 6 on environmental impact, includes the standard warehouse operations minimize impact on the environment, people, and communities. So here, the key actions consider any environmental impact when designing or updating the warehouse layout and management processes. You must regularly train staff, including casual labor, to correctly handle goods, manage product categories appropriately, use and maintain safety equipment properly, and of course, understand the environmental impact of the warehouse operations. It's good to make sure that the warehouse doesn't increase the exposure of neighboring communities to environmental threats, therefore. Key indicators include things like the availability of recommendations to minimize human and environmental impact of the warehouse management processes and operations. It's good to track the percentage of waste that is reused, repurposed, or recycled. And it's good to track the percentage of energy, material, and equipment coming from sustainable sources, such as the use of solar energy, perhaps. Other things to consider, and when selecting a warehouse, the location of sources of goods and the delivery points in order to minimize the transport distances between the source and the delivery point, say to minimize fuel consumed. And is there a need to be close perhaps to an airport or a seaport or major trucking route or transportation hub? When considering the actual warehouse structure, is the building properly orientated, if possible, to avoid direct sunlight, particularly in hot climates, affecting the contents of the warehouse? Warehouses can have a major impact on an effect on local communities. So it's therefore good to engage regularly with those communities regarding operations and any potential impact on the local ecosystem. This could be facilitated perhaps by recruitment of permanent or casual laborers from the local community to ensure that good communication. Make sure that you comply with local and national waste management regulations and avoid burning waste, and increase recycling of storage materials whenever possible, such as cardboard and wood, other plastic products. Replace any typical old types of lighting, incandescent lighting and fluorescent bulbs with more efficient LED lights, and connect lighting to motion sensors that make sure that the lights turn off automatically when not needed. Install energy efficient cooling solutions, and paint the outside of the warehouse white to reflect heat when that's feasible. Install UV blocking skylights, perhaps to reduce heat, and if appropriate, use the water-cooled chillers instead of air conditioning as part of the solutions to improve efficient cooling, sustainable cooling. And when choosing equipment, consider their environmental impact in terms of life cycle manufacturing, i.e. the carbon footprint caused, and any waste disposal costs. So we hope that summary of the chapter on storage and warehousing was useful, and please look out for other videos about our other chapters. Thank you.